We like to start off usually with understanding a little bit about our speakers and where you come from, and as an originator, where were you born? Where did you grow up? Danna, we can start with you. Just a short introduction of where you came from, and then maybe also a short introduction to what you're doing right now.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks first of all for having me here. I'm super excited. I'm Danna. I'm actually originally from Israel. I grew up in Israel and in America, in Boston, and actually a good chunk of my life now in Switzerland. I am a certified health coach. I help people reach deliciously sustainable lifestyle changes. And that's pretty much the gist.
Yes.
So thank you also for having me here today. My name is Annie Fernandez. My mother is from Tahiti, so I'm half Polynesian and I'm half Spanish. I was born in Cameroon, grew up in different countries. I moved to Zurich about 16 years ago, and I practice Chinese medicine, and also I'm a holistic life coach where I use different spiritual intuitive practices as well. I coach entrepreneurs. I'm also on the advisory board of a cryptocurrency company that is now starting. It's called Ubuntu Coin. And the concept of Ubuntu is for me very important, because to achieve this I am because we are, it's also an energy, and the whole history that is behind us. There's a lot of healing that we need to go through before we can achieve that collective consciousness and balance. So this is where my focus is.
Okay, thank you. Annie, when you were young, did you think you'd be running your own business?
No, this is not the kind of food you have as a child. I was too busy playing football and climbing trees.
Okay. At what point in time did you shift into the coaching side of things?
So for me, it wasn't a direct line. There's been a lot of different learning. I went to art school, worked as a graphic designer in London, web designer. Then I worked as a painter for 10 years. My life was pretty much raising my kids and going to my studio and painting. And the changes started about 10 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. And Danna, how about yourself?
I have to say yes. I kind of always knew I would be an entrepreneur because I never liked people telling me what to do. So I think I always envisioned myself owning my own business. I think we have a pretty similar kind of background, because I was also a graphic designer in my past life. I was also kind of interested in psychology and learned that. And so I feel that kind of what I'm doing now brought everything that I love to life. I started completely differently, though. I actually started with healthy kids cooking classes, and it was for the kids and the parents. And when the parents actually asked me to come to their home to coach them, to teach them, and stuff like that, that kind of brought up the whole topic of, okay, I guess I'm a coach now, and started developing that.
Okay. We usually have today we have a bit more of a mixed crowd, but I think it's also interesting for everyone. We have a lot of entrepreneurs, people who are starting their own companies. And for you, what were some of the challenges in the beginning of starting your coaching business?
I would say pricing. So knowing how to price myself, knowing how to be comfortable with my pricing, and giving, how should I say, so basically kind of knowing how to give as much as I can for myself without compromising my own health. Yeah.
Annie?
What was the question exactly?
Yeah, when you were starting your coaching business, I guess it also evolved over a certain time, finding your niche and finding what you wanted to focus on. But what were some of the bigger challenges in launching your business?
Well, most empaths struggle with the boundaries of getting affected by people's stories also. So learning to really be grounded, being in my body, grounded, not being affected by people's stories. The trust, to say, no, actually, I'm going to do this, and to surrender. And but for me, it was gradual because it involved studying Chinese medicine, which is quite long. So it evolved over time. Yeah, it was a natural progression.
And when we talk about well-being of body and mind, what are some of the first things that come to mind? What does that mean?
Well, that's a large topic. It means balance, but my approach is that if we have the balance within, we can have it outside in our life. So one of the biggest topic is grounding, rhythm, being present, learning to breathe. I teach Qigong and Tai Chi, so learning to breathe and to be present is very important.
Mm-hmm. And Danna, you focus a bit more on the food side.
That's what people assume, yeah. But I put a lot of emphasis on how we live our life. I don't believe that if someone is eating 100% healthy but has huge stress in his life, they're going to be healthy. So we're always looking at, we call it the primary food and secondary food. And the primary food is actually, stress, relationships, career, physical activity. And then the secondary food is actually what we eat. And what I say is always, it's everything that we digest. It's energy that we digest, and it's the food that we digest. And we need to look at everything in a holistic way, because we're not a robot. We can't take off our arm because it's broken. We need to look at what actually caused the arm to be broken. Yeah. And
what would be, maybe it's always hard to say what your number one tip is, because they're probably all number one tips, but what's one of the top tips that you can give to a startup founder, to someone who's because entrepreneurs tend to be wearing many hats, involved in so many different things, and are on 24/7. It's you don't clock in and clock out.
No, unfortunately you don't. Fortunately and unfortunately, I think, because it's our baby, it's our love, so we tend to cross boundaries, and I think those boundaries should quickly be set. I think that knowing when to stop and when to take time for yourself. So if I would have to choose one thing, and this is something that I would say to an entrepreneur and I would say to any human being, I think the number one thing that I would focus on is self-love and self-respect, because when you find that self-love and self-respect, you are actually able to give yourself that time off, or that okay, in a way that this person said no. It's not saying no to me. It's saying no to themselves. It's okay. I'm okay. It's everything is okay. So kind of giving yourself that break and giving yourself that acknowledgement that you're doing the best that you can, but you don't have to go overboard and go through like a burnout to actually, fulfill your dream.
Okay. If during the course of the conversation, if someone has a question, just raise your hand and we'll take a question from you as well. And also if you have a question for each other, you have, different, similar approaches, but different practices. So I'm sure there's a lot of interesting topics.
Can I say something about the baby? So I just want to compliment what you said, because it's exactly what we are all working on. About the baby, one thing I'm noticing in the coaching is that if your project is your baby, it's not going to grow. So often it gets blocked because it's yours. But as soon as you see it as a gift or as something for the community, this is when it can grow. And that's when people become successful. And then another thing is about abundance and money. Abundance does not come from the universe or God. Abundance comes from a connection with the earth. If you look at a tree, it's the earth that nourishes. So if you're looking for funding, if you're looking for success, if you're looking for money for your project to work, for me, I've noticed that it starts with you having your own roots and being connected with the earth. So that's, for me, it's key also.
Interesting. a lot of us, or many people, are aware of some of these topics, or are, or are in a stage where they're disconnected. What are some good steps to start to restore this connection between body and mind, and to what you just said about being grounded?
For me, it starts with a daily practice. The first step, usually I teach people to breathe. Because when you breathe, you're noticing in your inspiration, expiration, how much you take in and how much you give out. Most people would expire very strongly, so they lose a lot of energy in everything they do, and they take in very little. Their respiration is like, and then, and so that gives you already a balance in an idea of what is a balance in every single thing you do. So there you can already learn a lot about yourself and already reprogram something to create a balance between giving and receiving.
Mm-hmm. Today, I think there was upstairs. One of the sessions was about breathing. So that's interesting. It's something we do every day without thinking, but we should have so much more thought put into that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's super important also because it's not something that takes more time or energy from you, really, to take a deep breath rather than the shallow breaths that you were talking about. To answer your question, I think that for me, the easiest way to explain that is literally my kind of slogan, which is deliciously sustainable lifestyle changes. I really truly believe that in order to make a certain change in life, it has to be sustainable. And it has to be delicious in one way, shape, or form. So it has to be something that you're actually gaining from and enjoying. And when it is delicious, you want to continue it. And when it is, the way that I work with my clients is just setting small kind of sustainable goals so that they understand that there is one small thing that they can do and build up on that when it becomes a habit, when it becomes a lifestyle change. So, yeah, that's pretty much the way that I would kind of direct people to make those changes, is really to focus on the small steps that are bringing them to the bigger goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can I add something to that? Yes, the small steps, because something I also noticed is that often the task is too big. The biggest problem with entrepreneurs is that they have this project, and it's big. And they set themselves up for a really difficult time, and shame and guilt and all this. So it's very important to start, the step by step.
Yeah. I would love to actually say something about that. Yeah, when I talk to entrepreneurs, I realized that a lot of them, they would have their to-do list, for example. And one of their to-do lists is to build a website. And I don't find that to be a very realistic goal, because has anyone built a website here ever before? That it's not a day task or not even a month task. It's something that you have to break down into smaller, more reasonable goals. So I totally agree. I think that, making the goals more realistic, making them more realistic in terms of time and in terms of what can I actually get done today, it just makes more sense.
For sure.
Yeah.
Going back a little bit to the business side of things, what would, if you could go back in time or give yourself some personal advice, what would that be when you were younger?
I like that question, but I'm not sure how. I'm never sure how to answer that, just because I see everything that I went through in life, all of the hardship that I went through, especially starting a business, and there was a lot of hardship. I see them as these moments as learning opportunities. I don't necessarily see them as mistakes or things that I did wrong, because I don't believe that if I didn't go through them, that I would be in the same place that I am today.
So not necessarily what would you do different, but what would you tell your younger self or encourage your younger self? Or sometimes, one answer that people often give is to, try, fail faster, or to try, take more risk, take more chances.
Yeah.
It's interesting the different perspectives that people have about, because we often are very reserved about how we approach things and how we jump into things. And like you said, if you can make these mistakes and learn from it, often the more you make, the more you learn, and the quicker you can get to your goal or to what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, my husband's here. He can tell you that I am not a slow or a cautious person. I went through a lot of mistakes. I guess I would say, the same advice that I gave before is trust yourself and love yourself and kind of give yourself that time. I feel like I should, now in the last couple of years, I've come to this understanding and realization that sometimes the universe is just telling you to slow down. And you just need to listen to it. So if something isn't working and you try it again and again and again, it's just not working or it's not the time for it, just take a step back and just kind of reevaluate from an external point of view, I think, and take that time for yourself. The business will grow. It'll grow and it will develop. Sometimes it develops more when we just sit quietly and observe and kind of think, rather than rushing to things and trying to get things done yesterday.
Right. Yeah. Now, and Eve, on your side, do you have an experience of a setback or a failure that you went through in your business development, and how did you overcome that or go through that?
I think the setbacks were more before I did this as an artist, or before. I think what I would tell myself would be to play, just have fun. I think we get so much stuck in the mind, in I need to achieve, I need to earn money, and having the validation from how much money I've made, and instead of just having fun, doing things with the heart.
Yeah, that's true. How do you balance work, life, family?
Well, yes, it takes some organization. I have 3 children, a practice. I'm still studying. I'm still involved in other projects, and I paint. I have a studio. I'm a painter. I think it takes a lot of prioritizing and a lot of self-care and allowing windows in my week for me. I train every day, breathing. I go in the park before I go to work. I do my qigong. It takes a lot of, I pay attention to what I eat, rhythm, not drinking a lot of alcohol, just paying attention to my general well-being. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And you also have family and kids and juggling a few things. How do you balance work, life?
That took a while for me to
relaxing.
That took a while for me to actually bring to where I am today. I think having kids, wanting to be with the kids, and at the same time knowing when you're with the kids that there is stuff in the background that it's constantly in your head, and you need that to answer that email, and you need to write that article, and it is hard. It is, I agree, it's much easier when you have this kind of set schedule for yourself, when you say, okay, in the morning I do this, and, there are very set hours for me to work with my clients, there are very set hours for me to be with my kids and with my husband, and I used to work throughout the night sometimes. I completely stopped that. There is a certain hour where I said, nope, that's enough. We're having dinner now, we're sitting down, we're playing a game, we're reading a book, and then it's just my time to be with me, be with my husband, just be kind of not thinking of business, or trying hard not to, at least.
Yeah, okay. And what do you do to relax? What do you like to do?
Oh, it could be anything. It could be, just binge eating and watching Netflix. It could be, which doesn't sound like something I should do, but I do. I'm human too. It would be sitting and reading with the boys, or drawing with the boys, which I love to do, and they love to do as well. I think for me, relaxing means listening to my body. So if my body tells me, oh, let's go out and Nordic walk, or let's go out and, I don't know, do something fun outside, then I listen. And if my body tells me, you need to rest, you need to just lay flat on the sofa and not do anything, then that's what I would do. I love reading. Those are basically my go-to. So drawing, I do love to paint and draw and stuff. So I think those are kind of main things that I do focus on.
Okay.
Yeah, might be forgetting something.
In the end, it's about the balance, the different parts of yourself that need to be nourished, the inner child, the feminine, the masculine. We have all these parts within ourselves, and they all need to be nourished or seen or have space. So whatever it is for you, but I think it's important that all of them have a voice and a space.
And then, how do you see the progression of I guess modern healthcare, and not in the healthcare sense, but in the way that we approach mental health specifically, and the topics of psychology and psychiatry? A lot of these things are practices that have been around for a long time and haven't changed a whole lot. But then with practices of being aware of ourselves, like everything you're talking about, changes a lot of that and changes the impact that it has. How do you see the future of health when it comes to mental health?
So I see two trends, one going backwards and one going really forward fast. The backward is all the insurances making it difficult for practitioners in alternative medicine to get their treatment reimbursed. More and more schools are not recognized, more and more diplomas are not recognized. So there is that trend of stopping, and then at the same time there's a huge boost now of new consciousness, of new alternative ways of research in psychiatry and psychedelics and the effect of light and sound. So I think it's really encouraging, it's going forward. Okay. Not all treatment will be covered, unfortunately, in the future.
I love that question because I'm very outspoken about this. I do have my own kind of background, history of depression, and went through a good few years of struggle with that. And I do find that, I agree, I mean, I think that a lot of the practices that are being recognized nowadays by the health insurance are not necessarily holistic enough for people to gain a lot from it. I mean, what I see as a pattern with my clients as well is that they would go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, they will talk a lot, which is awesome, eventually get some medication, which will kind of numb them, and then we're kind of stuck there. What I've seen with myself, what I've seen with a lot of my clients is actually that when we do a little bit of a more intensive work that's unfortunately not covered, but super important, you do find a lot of holes in the system, and you do find a lot of holes within the person, missing nutrients, missing certain things in their body that they cannot necessarily gain just from nutrition. And so this is where, I think functional medicine comes in beautifully, and I do see a lot. I mean, I myself am not on medication anymore. I've been on medication for a good 5 years. So I can definitely say that for me, that was a huge step forward to find out about functional medicine, to get treated with supplements and to actually find out why, what is the reason. Because I truly believe that with every illness that every single person has, we can all of us in this room have the same exact problem where we can all be depressed, but each one of us will have a different reason, right? Some of us will be very low on iron, and others will be low on amino acids, and other ones will be, I mean, there's endless problems that we could have, and we could all have different issues, and the core of the problem would actually be the same. Right. So to kind of, go to Dr. Google and try to figure out what you have, and kind of, I see a lot of people who are trying to take supplements, and I keep telling them it's just like shooting in the air and waiting for a bird to fall, because you're kind of waiting for this random supplement to work when there's just endless amounts of supplements out there, to really understand what it is that you as an individual are lacking. I mean, not every human is the same. This is something that people have to understand. People walk around talking about the new, big diet here and there, and people are changing their life, and it doesn't work for everyone. Nothing is going to work for every single person out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When it comes to eating healthy, how do you define that?
I love that question. Thank you. How do I define healthy eating? I'll start with a word that I don't necessarily like, which is balance, because I find that a lot of people, the word balance means completely different things for them. So people will come and tell me, well, my diet is totally balanced. I only eat a bar of chocolate a day. And others would be very, very extreme and then go binge eating for like a whole weekend because they're so extreme during the week. I truly believe that every human needs to just understand what the foods are that could harm. And it's usually not food, it's food-like products. It's not actually like God-given food, it's man-made things. So we need to understand what it does for each of our bodies. So, again, sugar can give me a different reaction than her than you. But to also not swear off of anything. We eat sugar, we eat gluten, we eat milk products, we eat everything. But I can say that those things we eat, we consider them a recreational drug, right? So if you're drinking alcohol every single day, you're more likely to be called an alcoholic. And if you're drinking once a month when you go out with friends, it's a recreational drug. And for us, that would basically be the same. So if we're having a pizza once a month or once every couple of months out, then cool, it's fine. And if we're having, tiramisu after that pizza, that's also fine. But it's not on a daily basis, and it's not something that will enter our home.
You mentioned man-made food. How does these new, what are they called? The new hamburgers?
Yeah, I forgot.
Come into the picture.
Can I swear?
What are they? Yeah.
It's a chemical shitstorm. It literally is. There is nothing. There's a lot of natural stuff in there, but there's also stuff the natural stuff that is being converted into something else. I think if you're gonna have a burger, have a good quality burger. Have good,
with
grass-fed
real
meat. Yeah.
We
had burger for lunch. Have a grass-fed burger, organic. If you're having meat, then you might as well have good quality. So my idea, and this is something that I do with every single one of my clients, it's not leaving food out. It's upgrading your food. Okay, so, and by default, by default, and when living in Switzerland, when you're upgrading your meat to organic, grass-fed, which costs 3 times as much, you're going to eat less meat. So,
what do you think, Annie?
I think there isn't any rule that works for everybody, and there isn't an answer that is general. The Chinese medicine tends to recommend people to eat warm, especially in the morning, because that will affect your spleen, that would create really this tiredness. And so generally when people are really tired, especially after eating at lunch, they should eat warm, drink warm, but that's the main guideline that I normally tell people, especially because we live in a climate that is cold and that has a lot of moisture. So if you start eating food that has this cold quality, then the balance goes. So there's too much cold in your body, which would create a lot of problems.
Yeah, that's why I heard in Asia or Japan, is it, where they drink hot tea instead of they don't basically, or at least until recent years, there was never. Ice was a thing for foreigners, ice drinks, whereas they drink hot tea to cool them down.
Yeah, and I am partly Chinese. I'm Eurasian from my mother's side, and I grew up in Europe when we came back from Africa, and I always struggled with the diet here, always. And when I started eating warm and drinking warm, this is where things came into rhythm also.
Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned breathing on a daily basis. What are some other tips for maintaining that balance? Some easy things that, there's so many things you could spend half the day just getting started. But breathing, like you said, is something you can do while you're sitting on the tram on the way to work.
Well, there is what you eat and there is how you eat. So I would also recommend people to, when they eat, to really focus on eating, not be with their phone, or because that also brings a lot of stress in your stomach. There is also rhythm in your day. The earth rules are rhythmical, 24 hours. So bringing earth in your life and groundedness also means bringing rhythm. So having morning rituals, not changing all the time your schedule. If you're traveling a lot, take the time to maybe ground. Simple meditation exists, you can find on many platforms. Spend time in nature. That's very important. Nature we are part of nature, and it's a simple way to regulate.
Talking a bit more about the business side of things, do either of you have you always worked as a single coach, or do you also have work in a team with more people together, either with you or
as coaches?
Yeah.
No, I for now I'm a control freak, so I want to know that everything is kind of being done the way I'm comfortable with, and I love the connection with my clients. So I think I do collaborate with people, with doctors, with other coaches, different coaches in different realms and different subjects, but in terms of my own business, no, I'm pretty much.
The question I'm trying to get at is what would you encourage founders to as ways to inspire their employees?
Okay, that's a good question. I think that, first of all, when you're talking about a team, I wouldn't say, that's why I asked coaches, because a team means having people that complement you and complete what you're not necessarily good at, right? So, of course, I have my web designer because he's good at what he does and he's amazing at what he does. I have, my husband, who I call my slave, who does pretty much what he's good at. So, we complete each other. We kind of complement each other, and I have that understanding that I'm not going to waste my time on things that I'm not good at when I can just hand it over to someone who's good at it, and I can focus on what I love to do. I think in terms of your team, happiness in the team. So I think understanding. Just like, we're talking about self-love, I think understanding that the people who I work with and work for me and with me need their time as well. I'm a huge believer in a 4-day business work model. I'm a huge believer in, taking, I heard a really cool talk about early retirement in terms of taking long weekends every single weekend. So that you're actually not going into pension when you're old and gray and broken and can't even do what you've been dreaming of for the last 60 plus years, but rather kind of, enjoying your life at the moment. So I think giving, not only looking at that for yourself, but also making sure that your team has that luxury of enjoying their life.
Right. Okay.
Can I answer the question about the? Yes. I love collaborating. I think more and more in my spiritual development, I see a we more than an I. So the breath work we do, we invite musicians. It's like something we weave all together. And I think to get out of this mess we're all in, I think the community thing, the we, has to emerge. And that's very important. And I collaborate with doctors. Also with the patient, that's the one-to-one, but a friend of mine has this project called We Flow, and I strongly believe in that, coming together and helping each other to flow. But yeah.
Okay. What advice would you have for someone who wears many hats?
Take them off.
Yeah.
So, like as a coach or as a single business owner, you like Danna was saying, in the one moment you're taking care of your kids, the next moment you're talking to your web designer, the next moment you're paying the bills, and so on and so forth. You're constantly, and as a founder, you always.
I think it's all about presence. Like if you do it, be present while you're doing it. Okay. Really. And if you're not present while you do it, well, do something else. Go for a jog and come back. But everything you do, just be present with it.
Yeah, I really think you need to be loving what you're doing or just delegating it. A lot of entrepreneurs that's just start, they feel like they're going to save money by putting up their own website on Wix or, things like that. And speaking from a point of view of someone who has been there and wasted a lot of time on Wix, it is a waste of time. And it's a waste of time that you feel like you're saving your money or you're saving, you're kind of saving up while you do that. But at the same time, you're really wasting your time and you're almost, it's almost a self-sabotage kind of thing. Because as beginners, we have this dream and we always fear of actually jumping in and doing what we are supposed to do, what we want to do. If it's picking up the phone and making calls, or if it's just getting clients, or whatever it may be, we're kind of wasting our time hiding behind the tasks that we're supposed to do. And I think that if we take a moment and understand that it's time versus money, really. So if we take that time and put it back into ourselves or back into our business in another way that actually fulfills us, and give the tasks to someone who is good at it, and will do it in a third of the time, then it actually makes a little bit more sense. And you are enjoying the whole process of building up your business a lot more.
Yeah, that's a good point. What's a mistake that you've made that you would wish other entrepreneurs wouldn't have to make?
Don't use Wix. Really, I like I said, I've made a lot of mistakes, but I really do see them as learning opportunities.
Well, they say a wise man learns from their own mistakes, and a wiser 100%. Man from the mistakes of others.
Yeah, not that wise, unfortunately.
So it's helpful to hear other people's. It's important to make your own mistakes, but sometimes you can learn from other people's mistakes.
Hopefully. I think that except for the Wix, one more thing that I did definitely learn is that, again, if you're kind of a busy brain like I am, then you have millions of ideas that you want to do and this is like, oh my God, I have this amazing idea. And you want it done yesterday. Yeah. And I think this is another one of those things that we were wasting our time on. So we're not focusing. I see a lot of entrepreneurs who are, you kind of try to figure out what they're doing and what they're about, and you have no idea. And I think that's a huge mistake, because if the person outside doesn't understand it, they obviously don't understand, or they're just kind of, again, trying to find their niche, but they're trying in so many different ways that they're not focusing enough on that one thing that they really want to do and they're really good at. And I think it's natural at the beginning, because you're just sniffing around, you're trying to figure out what you're all about. At the same time, I think deep inside, when you do some good digging deep, you do know what fulfills you. Mm-hmm. And if you just focus on that and, let the growing pains do the work and just focus on that brings you further than scattering everywhere.
About the weeks, everything is energy. So if I'm trying to cut corners and be always cheap, then that's also the energy I attract. Yeah. So what you put in is what you're going to bring, what you will also attract. So it's all about this worth that I put in, and that creates a magnet. So, yeah.
Interesting. And is there any outstanding mistake that you remember that you feel was a big learning?
So not so much in the coaching, but more in other projects I've had. One mistake that I made a lot was to go with friendship over competence. Oh, she's my friend, she can do it, come along. And that makes you waste a lot of time, actually.
And lose friendships.
And complicate at least the friendships. So don't mix too much personal stuff with business.
Good point. You guys have been very quiet. Do you guys have any questions? Yes, Joel.
I have one. It goes back to the beginning. Laura?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can say Annie.
Abundance doesn't come from God. we use a metaphor of a tree. It comes from the ground around you. So if I was to extend that, that would mean that someone starting a business in this country versus, I don't know, you said you were born in Tahiti, right?
My mother's from Zurich.
But so in a, let's say a developing country, right, where there is not abundance, yeah. So I'm questioning the source of abundance, right?
Well,
I
God,
agree with you that it's
let
more
me
likely.
clarify. Yeah, I mean, God gives the seed or the inspiration, but then it has to land on the soil. And then the quality of the soil will make that grow. So this is what I mean more. We are all inspired by God all the time, and everybody, especially if you're inspired to do this project and it's close to your heart and you're going for it and you're sacrificing a lot of your cows for that project, because most of you probably did, just to be able to start your project. Well, the quality of your connection with the ground will allow that project to grow. This is what I meant.
I'm not disagreeing, I'm just questioning.
It's embodiment.
Well, I'm questioning how useful that is to most of the people here are interested in
Well, when I do treatments, I give exercises also for grounding, but also I stimulate the earth elements, so doing Chinese medicine on the meridians on different points. Because it is, if you're not really connected with the ground, trust me, your project is not going to attract money. I've seen it over and over again. And a lot of people are also disconnected from their own roots, from their own ancestral stories, from where they come from. And some people may not even are successful, they may not even realize that they have those roots. Maybe they do have naturally with that effortlessly. Some people are born effortlessly grounded, some people are not. But I've seen in the conscious entrepreneurship, especially spiritual people, tend to have this connection above, and they're really good at networking, a lot of fire, a lot of coders, that's all fire, fire, fire. But often it doesn't materialize because they don't have this connection with here and now and the ground.
I don't want to have an awful
Yeah. I mean, you're still around afterwards a little bit if you want to pick up the conversation. Any other last minute questions before we wrap up? And on your side, is there something that you'd like to finalize with?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talk about body and mind, I think there needs to be an understanding that there is an inevitable connection there. I think a lot of people, I mean, it's something kind of what you were saying, like a lot of people are kind of there, or there needs to be an understanding that we are a holistic human being. And this word has been like used and abused a little bit lately, but it's true. I mean, we have multiple brains in our body. We have multiple immune systems in our body. We have multiple functions to every organ. And to understand that every single part of us actually matters, and that we need to give love to this machinery that's been dragging us around for years, is something that I think everyone needs to understand and respect and appreciate about themselves.
Something that comes to mind is, when you talk about spirituality, when you talk about holistic, there sometimes tends to be an aversion to topics like that, because sometimes it's been, like you said, it's been misused or abused or not seen in the right way, or there's simply a lack of understanding. How do you see that because obviously people want to improve, and we're brought up to go to the doctor and take some medicine and help you get better, or the basics of trying to eat balance, but then you said, what's balance? There's often a big question mark that comes up when you talk about spiritual or holistic or meditation, things like that. How do you see that? And
there's something that I always when I talk to my clients, I always say, I don't care if you call it the universe or if you call it God, or if I know what I believe, you know what you believe. I think that at the end of the day, you have to have some sort of belief, right? Some sort of something that grounds you back into this universe, this world, this place that we live in, to connect you back to something, right? We're not just kind of like floating around here, just waiting for shit to happen. It doesn't work that way. We are always depending on other people. We're depending on the energy around us. And I really believe that just kind of like understanding that connection, understanding that there is a lot more around us, and that we do rely on all of the energy that we're digesting. Again, there are definitely words that are overused. I think when people hear holistic, they're like, oh, this hippie, like, what is she talking about? Yes, okay, it has been overused, but I think, thinking of the word itself and understanding the word itself, and understanding that this cell is connected to that cell and connected to the one in the toe as well, understanding what that word means, rather than hearing, sustainability, huge word that people kind of like hear and dismiss now. All of these spirituality, all of these words, people kind of just brush off. And I think bringing it back to your consciousness and understanding what that word actually means for you brings a lot more than just kind of brushing it off and saying, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, my father was a vicar, so I grew up in the Protestant church, and I watched the whole movie as a child of everything. And trust me, spirituality has nothing to do with belief and with God. I mean, it's more a journey within yourself, and you can do that without any belief, just by learning a craft. A potter. Yeah. And it's through all the steps you do when you learn that craft that you will achieve all those milestones that are taught in spirituality, which is to surrender, to let go, to have space, to be grounded. I mean, all those steps happen just by learning a craft. So, and there's nothing to achieve.
Yeah, that's actually a very beautiful interpretation of it. Yeah. We get caught up in the words and in the meanings, and instead of how do they apply to us personally. So that's true, to let go of our preconceived ideas of words and interpretations. No one else? All right, so usually we have one person, and so we like to wrap up with this list of what we call rapid fire questions. There's no right or wrong answer, but it's just fun and interesting to get to know a little bit more about you. I think we have 10 questions, so I'll just do one and then the other back and forth just to keep it simple. So just the first thing that comes to mind, yeah. Yeah. What is one item that you own that you would never sell?
My wedding ring.
What?
I love it.
What is your most unusual skill? The questions get easier after.
Okay. Gosh, my most unusual skill.
Or different or interesting.
Keep your peace. Football. Juggling the ball.
Okay. What's more important, strength, speed, or stamina?
Stamina.
And what historical figure do you admire?
Gosh, there's a few.
Yeah.
Stephen Hawking.
Mm-hmm. What is your favorite season of the year?
Summer. That was easy.
When was the last time that you tried something new?
Today.
Team or single founder?
Oh. Having gone through, team. Yeah.
Cats or dogs?
I have a cat. I wish I could have a dog, but I can't have a dog.
Beer or wine?
Water.
What's your favorite app on your phone?
My favorite.
Or one that you use a lot?
Twint.
And what's something on your bucket list?
Traveling more, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing the world.
Yeah. And Annie, if you could have the attribute of any animal, what would you choose?
Fly.
To fly. That's an amazing experience. Thank you so much for being with us tonight and for all that you shared with us. It was very interesting, and I think we could probably go on talking quite a bit more, but we're coming to a close here. I believe you're both still around a little bit, so if anyone has questions, they can also talk to you. Thank you all for joining us tonight and for being part of the CoLab Open Hub Day. I think, Joanna, afterwards, what do we have? There's a DJ?
What?
There's a DJ happening afterwards, right?
Exactly.
Is-
DJ.
Yeah.
So
What time does that start?
well, it started right after that.
Yeah.
Around 6.
Yeah. Okay. So there's going to be some music and networking, and look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you so much.